Welcome into this edition of LCPioneers.com Live, presented by PiosCREW, as we keep you connected with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and different members from throughout the Lewis and Clark College community twice a week now, Tuesday and Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time on Facebook Live. You can also find the show streaming and on demand, rather, youtube.com/LCPios. Hi, everyone. I am Ryan Goff. I'm the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark, the Pioneers out of Portland, Oregon, and member of NCAA Division III, with institutions from throughout the Pacific Northwest, state of Washington, and Northwest Oregon, and a chance for our student athletes to compete on the national stage as a member of NCAA Division III. I want to get straight to our guest because we had some technical issues at the start of the show. We're going to have head coach of strength and conditioning, Dendas, join us a little bit later on the show. Right now, it's Pioneers women's rower junior Skylin Alcorn joining us on the show. And Skylin, thanks for your patience as we sorted out what was going on behind the scenes, and a chance to talk to an all-conference caliber rower like yourself, which I'm kind of excited to hear what this last season was like for you and your team. But let's start with kind of the current, right? How did the last part of the spring semester class-wise go for you, and how are you enjoying the start of summer so far?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan. I'm doing pretty good. The end of the spring semester, um, it was great because a lot of my classes, they were more difficult like earlier on in the semester, so I kind of wasn't quite as stressed as some other students. My finals all went really well. And then the competitions towards the end of the semester were great, really fun.
Yeah, I mean, you had the conference rowing championships toward the end of the season. That's the culmination of a spring's worth of practice. But I'm curious, how was it, I guess, a little bit different this year in the sense that I talked about, you're going on the heels of a whole different fall, no spring season last year, right? Describe how the spring felt differently, if at all, this year.
Yeah, it definitely felt different from a normal spring. Because in the fall, like our team was a little more disconnected. We had been practicing on land, and it was such a relief to be able to get back out on the water and also get to be able to compete. Um, we were kind of like our team, and as well as a lot of the other teams in the conference, were just at a different place than we normally are. Um, like we hadn't been training as hard previously, so we kind of were focused on just like doing the best that we could and just like focusing on where we're at and like how we can compete as well as we can.
Um, you had high school rowing experience coming into your Lewis and Clark time, and that's something I don't think we've discussed much on the show because a lot of the discussion we've had with some of your teammates, both on the men's and women's team, have focused on more of that novice track, right, where you have very little, if any, experience prior to. What was it about the sport of rowing that kind of got you interested in the first place?
Yeah, so I actually started rowing in middle school, and originally my older sister started rowing first, and I just would see her go out on the water and like be a part of this team, and I was so eager to try it. So as soon as I was old enough to be eligible, I joined the team, and I was so happy with it because I had done some other sports when I was younger, but they weren't anything like rowing. Because rowing is just so good at building like a person's character and also just like working together with the people in your boat. And it was great to like get physical exercise and also have this like structured activity all the time.
Skylin Alcorn, our guest on LCPioneers.com Live, a junior for women's rowing. I always like the origin story whenever we have a chance to talk to student athletes and get an idea of what brought you to Portland, what brought you to Lewis and Clark. For you, what were those reasons?
Yeah. So when I was first started applying for colleges, I had never heard of Lewis and Clark, and I applied to all of these large universities because I didn't really know what I wanted. Um, and then one of my counselors was like, "Oh, you should go to Lewis and Clark." So I was like, "Sure, I'll apply." And then I came and I visited the campus, and I fell in love with it. Such a beautiful area, and I was like, It's going to be a great fit for me to have smaller classes and like really get to know my professors, and it just seemed like it had a great community.
Do you have kind of that path academically that you're going for? Did you declare a major? Do you have an idea of what you want to do after your time at Lewis and Clark is done?
Yeah, I'm a biology major at Lewis and Clark, and I'm planning to continue with graduate school and focus on wildlife biology. I'm not really sure exactly what my career will be, but mhm.
What made you decide that wildlife was something that you kind of have at least an inkling that that's a direction you want to go?
Yeah, I really love to spend time outdoors and just learn about the world around me and how things work. Um, yeah, so I've always been interested in that kind of field.
Well, if that's the case, then describe the Pacific Northwest from that nature perspective, right? I mean, you could even talk about Lewis and Clark College's campus in that regard too, because it kind of feels like it's that part of nature. But by and large, if somebody has never been out here before and never experienced them themselves, what would you tell them about the wildlife and nature here?
Yeah, I would say that like Western Oregon is a very unique place because you have some mountains, you have Mount Hood, and then you have a lot of this great rich forest with like moss on the trees. It's very green, lots of different types of plants, and then you also have the coast pretty close by, so you have lots of options for outdoor activities. And then you also have some great, like on campus is also very green. Um, One of my like favorite thing favorite things is just walking across campus and seeing like all the squirrels running around, and there's also these like little hummingbirds up in the trees that are just fun to have.
I'm curious as you describe the team aspect, right? Just being a member of the team, practice in and practice out, and during the course of, with rowing, you have two seasons, in the fall and in the spring. When someone is part of this rowing team, what's that like from the inside perspective?
Yeah, being a part of our rowing team is really great because when you go into college, or even if you start later, it just connects you with a group of people that come from like different majors and different grades, and you get to meet people and have like kind of a group of instant friends, and then you're just tied together by working so hard and being committed to the sport. And then we also have our coaches that are really supportive and helping bring everyone together.
And of course, Coach Dog is a big part of that too, with Coach Loba's
Absolutely.
puppy. Some of the best pictures that come out of any of our teams is those of Coach Dog. I want to ask you about Kess because both Kess and you were selected all conference, and even as reading through the recap and getting a feel for what that honor means, it sounds like your roles in the boat, and specifically kind of that stern role, right? Describe what that means to somebody who may not have the familiarity with rowing. Why is that an important role within the boat?
Yeah, so being in the like stroke pair of the boat is important because you're setting the pace for the rest of the boat. Um, you're like, it's really important for 7 and 8 seat, which is that stroke pair, to be in time with each other and be like calm, so you're not like rushing forward in the stroke, and you're also just staying well connected and being able to have a consistent pace, so that every person behind you is following the person in front of them, and it's very important for the sport for everyone to just be really in sync and have some solid people to follow.
All right, let's close with this then. Assuming everything goes according to plan, right? And at this point, I'm not okay saying that that is a given anymore, right? But assuming we get back into a pre-pandemic like schedule and you have all of the fall and all of the spring for this team, what do you think is possible for the Lewis and Clark Pioneers rowing team?
I think there's a lot that's possible. I'm really excited for next year because this past spring, um, it was kind of inspirational because we like came from this hard COVID year, and we came back really strong. Our novices were really great, powerful, caught on to the sport really well. And so we had a very strong boat this spring. We did good in our races, got like the first varsity boat got second place in several of them. So I'm excited for next year. I think that we could really continue to build off of that and refine our technique and do great.
Well, I think it's an exciting time too, and looking forward to seeing everyone back in the fall. That said, enjoy your summer. Thank you for taking time to join us today, and really appreciate getting a chance to talk to you. Skylin Alcorn, thank you so much for joining us on lcpioneers.com live.
Thanks, Ryan.
Absolutely.
This is great.
Yeah, that was fun. Skylin Alcorn joining us, and big thanks to her for giving us some patience at the front end of the show, and still didn't love the audio that we had coming across. And hopefully, when we have Coach Dendas in the final segment of today's show, that'll be a little bit better. You can even see the difference in the coloring of the camera. We obviously haven't got everything boiled down to our on-campus studio, but we will, and that's exciting as we continue the show into the month of June and have an opportunity to keep you connected with everybody over the course of the 2021 summertime. When we come back, we will talk to the head coach of Lewis and Clark Strength and Conditioning. That is Coach Ange. As everyone knows her on campus, we'll have a chance to talk to her about things that she's focusing on over the course of the summertime as well. And we'll do that when we come back. Thanks for joining us today on lcpioneers.com live. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Nick Lombardi. Something I've learned at Winterim this year is how to communicate a vision.
My biggest takeaway from Winterim is probably the networking. Getting to talk to everybody, connect with people for the future is one of the most valuable things, and I did Winterim last year, came back for more this year.
I think a way in which my liberal arts education has really helped me and my group formulate our ideas is that concept of critical thinking and having many different backgrounds, me being an econ major and my two group mates being chemistry majors. We really get that well-rounded background, well-rounded ideas.
I think overall it's absolutely worth doing. You find yourself not only being more prepared for, say, this next semester, on top of being more prepared for life in general.
Welcome back into lcpioneers.com live, presented by PiosCREW, as we keep you connected with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and different members from throughout the Lewis and Clark College community on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live. If you miss any of our past shows, including our interview a few minutes ago with Skylin Alcorn, who's a junior for women's rowing, you can find it on our YouTube page at youtube.com/lcpios. We are excited to welcome in our second guest of today. It's head coach of Lewis and Clark Strength and Conditioning. That's, of course, fan favorite. It's Coach Ange joining us on the show. Coach, thanks for taking the time and finding a spot where we could talk today. I think this is, your third or so time on the show, and it's always fun to talk to you. It's summertime. You can see the green. You can see the sunshine behind you. What's that mean in the realm of strength and conditioning? What are student athletes looking to do over the summertime from your perspective?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me again, Ryan. It's awesome able to do this again. And yeah, like you said, it's summertime for us. So a lot of our student athletes are back home at their local gyms training again. And we're fortunate we're able to stay in touch throughout the entire summer with our workouts. So all of our teams get situated similar to how we do when they're here on campus with their workouts right on their phones. And they're able to prepare as much as they can as they get ready to report back for what we hope to be a normal fall come August.
Yeah, I was just talking about that with Skylin too. Is I'm not going to take anything for granted at this point, but hopefully everything will go back to a more non-pandemic type schedule, right? And you've done as much adjustment as anybody has in that regard. I want to catch up about that in just a second, but I am curious. You mentioned phones. How has technology really helped strength and conditioning, getting programs out there, making sure student athletes have access to the stuff that you want them to be doing during the off season?
Yeah, it's helped out tremendously. Obviously, technology, and whenever you can incorporate it into what you're doing, whatever field that is, just allows you to. It's just an easier way to get information. That's kind of how I utilize it. I've gone from making, thick workout books that each athlete would take home and have to lug around to their gyms when they're home, to they just take their phone and pull it up, and every day it's what they need to get done right there.
We're talking to head coach Angela Dendas of Lewis and Clark Strength and Conditioning, Pioneer Power, as I've seen the T-shirts and the sweatshirts running around Pamplin with. Let's talk about facilities, right? I mentioned you've had to do so much work to just try to keep the strength and conditioning program active, also beyond that with our facilities, and we appreciate all you've done. What are the facilities like, both the type of things you had to do to make sure student athletes could have access to your programs over the course of the pandemic, and then, of course, just in general, what can people expect when they come to Lewis and Clark?
Yeah, I think obviously the biggest thing for us was just the constant adjustments. It felt like every 2 weeks we were, okay, what do we need to adjust in terms of facility wise? So we went from the entire fall being inside to starting our spring semester outside in the parking lot. Actually, that's like right in front of me right now. So we had outdoor training. So we were able to create an environment similar to the one we have inside, and be able to train throughout an entire month, really, which was a crucial time for our spring sports as they prepare for competitions. And it was a way for our other teams to stay on track throughout their entire training year. And you just kind of adjust, you just kind of make it happen. The kids did a great job of showing up every day and working hard. And now with that, we've been able to we have a permanent outside area now that we can train and spread out when we're in our, inside facility. So we just have this great environment now that's allowed to accommodate probably more athletes as we move to kind of a normal capacity in the fall.
What are the preparations like then over the course of the summer? Again, we're looking at a situation where we're approaching the fall 2021 like it's going to be like the fall of 2018, right? Just something that we can anticipate and be sure of. What do you have to do to get prepared for the arrival of fall sports programs and get set for the strength and conditioning year?
It's really coming down to, planning. The summer is a big time for me to plan our entire year, really, for a lot of teams, meeting with head coaches. Already met with a few that just finished their season, and we're already talking about, okay, what's next? What's going on for next year? And so taking this time over the summer to really plan that out. It's always great to go into the fall prepared. and then organizing based on, what our kids are doing when they're taking classes, what teams we need to get in at certain times in the facility, based around practice schedule. So the summer is, it's, you can have your fun, but it's also a lot of work of preparing. And then facility wise, I'm looking at, what do we need to repair? What do we need to replace? Making sure we have the right equipment for our student athletes. So.
Ange Dendas, our guest on lcpioneers.com live, head strength and conditioning coach for the Pioneers. I always ask this of coaches and also to the degree the student athletes we talk to on the show, because I just see such a big mentorship role, both as a mentee with student athletes and then the mentor side of things for coaches. You're a head coach, obviously, so how does that come up for you? What's mentorship mean for you in the world of strength and conditioning?
Yeah, obviously you get your daily mentoring of your student athletes, but an area that you don't want to really neglect is going to be, within your coaching staff, within your fellow coworkers, and so taking the time to one, create some mentorship. So I'm part of an organization called We Coach, and I was in our mentorship. We did a mentorship program throughout really fall and spring, and it was a great way to connect with other coaches across the country, to see kind of how they're dealing with things, and it was a good perspective to gain. I was fortunate enough to have another coach at a Division III in my group, and so we were able to share ideas and to learn, how we're coping with all these changes that were going on, really to our normal routine. And so anytime you can take advantage of any professional development and mentorship opportunities, do it. It's not just for yourself, but for me, it's me becoming better as a coach allows me to be a better coach to our student athletes. So.
One other thing, too, that I never like to take for granted is the fact that there may be somebody who's looking to compete at the NCAA Division III level, become a student athlete, right? And I remember one person telling me one time, was like, I had never considered how much sports medicine help there was at the Division III level for student athletes. We've obviously talked about how you're unique with your strength and conditioning program, but one other part of that, right, is how many students get to work for you over the course of an academic year and to a degree get involved in strength and conditioning from a teaching level, I would suppose. Describe what I'm trying to put into words there for me is what opportunities are there for student athletes, students on Lewis and Clark's campus to get involved as an employee of yours?
Yeah, so fortunate to be able to have some, great students early on when I first got here and started the program that really took an interest into what I was doing, and they just wanted to learn a bit more, and then apply it to what they were doing. And so having opportunities for student athletes that maybe have maybe a passion, right, for realizing, how strength and conditioning can really enhance your overall athletic performance. They're able to see kind of the other side of what I do, right? The preparation side, learning, why we do certain things at certain times of the year. And so there's a great opportunity. I've been fortunate enough, again, to have, 3 or 4 every year, and just kind of this cycle through, to give them an experience that they probably wouldn't get really anywhere else unless they were in the field of strength and conditioning specifically.
Well, we're certainly grateful that we have you on our team. Ange, you are by far a fan favorite of everyone in this building, both student athletes and staff alike. Head coach of
Thanks,
strength
Ryan.
and conditioning. Yeah, absolutely. Angela Dendas, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the show today.
No problem. Thank you. Roll Pios.
That's head coach Ange Dendas on the show. You're talking about making do with a lot of things that were unexpected over the course of the year, and I have witnessed few who did it better than Coach Ange. Tremendous effort, stepped up in situations that I have to imagine were incredibly difficult to be able to find a way to be able to supply her strength and conditioning program to the student athletes. It was an amazing effort from her, and I'm grateful that she's on our team. Really grateful too that she took time to join us today. You even saw stepping outside. The summer time in Portland is magnificent right now. It's going to be probably in the mid 80s at some point today. A lot of green that you can see throughout Lewis and Clark's campus, over 130 acres of wooded forest land just southwest of downtown Portland, Oregon. So it's a phenomenal place to be, a chance for our student athletes to experience it, continue training in the summer with those workouts that Coach Ange prepares, and then go into the fall season, hopefully as good as they can be. And that affects folks like Skylin, who was our first guest today too, with that fall and winters, fall and spring split season that they have. We're going to wrap it up there. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us today. Appreciate both of our guests joining us as well. May have some shows next week. Not sure exactly whom, if we will. May also have an off week because of vacation and then get back into it in the middle of June. Either way, we'll keep you up to date on our website, lcpioneers.com, and you can find us easily by going to lcpioneers.com/live. Until we talk to you again on Tuesday or the week after, I'm Ryan Goff. Thank you so much for having fun with us today. Big thanks again to our guests, Skylin Alcorn and Coach Ange for joining us. We'll be back coming up soon with more of lcpioneers.com Live, presented by PiosCREW. Goodbye, everybody.
I'm Anne Bentley. I'm an associate professor of chemistry, and in this research group, I supervise the 2 students working in the Rogers program this summer in our lab. The brown bag experience is a good chance for students to get experience presenting their work that they've done in the lab, especially to an audience that's not technical.
What's intriguing about the brown bag experience is it incorporates all of the Rogers program. So I'm able to hear people in the psychology department and what research they're doing, but it also gives us the opportunity to share our research with the greater science community at Lewis and Clark. And for incoming students, the summer program is really beneficial for getting opportunity in research. So I've had the opportunity for research in the past, but other students may not have the same opportunities. So it's nice to work in a professional lab setting and potentially have the opportunity to publish a paper, which looks really good moving on into doing professional research out in the field.
The students grow a lot during the summer in their ability to learn the techniques and apply the techniques and suggest their own ideas for what could come next and interpret their data. It's just a big, usually if they haven't done research before, they learn a lot in that short period of time.